Anne Pavletich, the Irish girl from Kilkenny, whose crossing of the Tasman with her Croatian husband symbolises the opening up of Gold Rush Dunedin to a new ethnic and religious diversity in the 1860s. Anne Pavletich bears a Croatian surname, and she's acknowledged as the mother of the very first person of Croatian descent to be born in New Zealand. But she was in fact Irish and Catholic, maiden name Connell. She was the eldest child of Daniel Connell and Mary Tobin, born here in the parish of Callan in 1832.
Immigration was kind of an accepted thing. Nobody batted an eyelid about it. It was common for people to immigrate, and most of them never came back.
Daniel Connell's small farm was a decent bit of land for that time in this place, so we don't really know why he left. But this area did suffer badly during the Great Famine, and there was lots of death, lots of suffering, and it was immediately after those crisis years, in 1853, that the entire Connell family of 8 secured assisted passages to go to Victoria, Australia. They set sail from Plymouth on the ship Argyle, along with a whole bunch of other immigrants also from County Kilkenny. On arrival in Melbourne, 20-year-old Anne immediately secured employment as a domestic servant. 3 years later, she married Thomas Pavletich, a Catholic from Croatia, at that time part of the Austrian Empire, who ran an Italian restaurant in Little Bourke Street in central Melbourne. Thomas's business enterprises in Melbourne extended to hotel keeping and operating a boarding house before they moved to Castlemaine, where he ran a fruiterer's. In 1862, the Pavletiches sold up in Victoria and crossed the Tasman on the Aldinga with their 2 small children. They rented a house here in Hooper's Lane, just off Walker Street, and began operating it as a boarding house. Now, this area at that time was characterised by overcrowded shanty housing that had been run up very quickly to cope for the horde of new arrivals drawn by the Dunstan gold rush, and in after years it deteriorated into a slum area known as the Devil's Half Acre. Conditions must have been quite primitive from the beginning, and we know that Gold Rush Dunedin was a hotbed of disease, mostly from its polluted waterways. Anne gave birth to her 4th child here in Walker Street in February of 1864. Christened Leander Thomas, her baby boy was the first person of Croatian descent to be born in New Zealand. Just over a month later, however, Anne and Thomas lost their 4-year-old daughter, Casimira. And a month after that, their 3-year-old son, Bonaventura, both of whom had been born in Victoria, where they'd previously lost another child in infancy. And 3 more children that were born to them in Dunedin also died as children. That was a heartbreaking rate of loss, even in the context of 19th century Australasia. But fortunately, 3 more children were born who did survive to adulthood. In 1867, Thomas returned to the hospitality trade, taking over the well-known Abbey Leash House in Maclagan Street, renaming it the Universal Hotel, the same name he'd used for his businesses in Australia. It was situated on a site just above the Arcade, that well-known covered series of shops that was the most popular shopping area in Dunedin at that time. And the Universal Hotel too would become a very popular accommodation spot in central Dunedin, offering boarding accommodation for £1 a week, as well as a bar and a bowling alley. Thomas, meanwhile, established quite a public profile in Dunedin, notable for his colourful forays into public debates and a controversial project to develop a piggery, as well as for his valued services as a translator, being quite a linguist. He died from peritonitis in 1878, aged just 55. Anne then took over as proprietor and licensee of the hotel. But after complaints about its rundown condition, she had it completely rebuilt in 1881 and earned praise for the fine quality of its fittings and design. And this new 3-storey brick hotel with an Italianate frontage was designed by the leading architects of the day, Mason and Wales. The following year, she hosted some historic visitors, Te Whiti o Rongomai and Tohu Kākahi, when the Taranaki Māori prophets were brought to Dunedin as guests of the government. At the first hotel selected for them, the hostess had balked at taking in the infamous dissidents, but Anne Pavletich had no such qualms. The jailer who accompanied them noted in his diary how she took our friends to her heart at once, so to speak, and made them, as well as ourselves, really comfortable. Anne Pavletich died at the Little Sisters of the Poor home in Andersons Bay in 1917, aged 84. Her Irish Catholic background and her Croatian surname pointed to the many changes that had occurred in Otago in the 1860s. It was all very different from the exclusively Scottish and Presbyterian settlement dreamed of by Cargill and Burns and McGlashan back in the 1840s. By now there were people of every creed and race here in Dunedin, and all those different strands of identity were building up to a rich tapestry as Dunedin matured into New Zealand's first great city.